42 years I spent cutting people open and putting them back together. 3,000 hearts held in these hands. I retired thinking the hardest surgery was behind me. Then I overheard my daughter tell her husband, "The old fool signed everything. We're free." She was wrong. What I was about to do in the next 72 hours would be the most precise operation of my entire life. And she was the tumor I had to remove. I am truly grateful you are here with me. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you are watching from today. I love seeing how far this community reaches. A quick note. Some elements in this story are dramatized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to real people or places are coincidental, but the message behind it is very real, and it matters. My name is Thomas Brennan. Most people called me Dr. Brennan for 4 decades. Now they just call me Tom. I am 70 years old, retired cardiac surgeon, 42 years at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. I have performed over 3,000 open-heart surgeries. I have held dying hearts in my palms and coaxed them back to life. I have lost patients on the table and carried their names in my memory like stones in my pocket. But nothing in my career, not a single flatline, not a single failed bypass, prepared me for what happened on a Friday evening in December. It started with a phone call. A simple FaceTime call to wish my daughter a happy birthday. Friday evening, December 13th, 7:30. I sat in the living room of our brownstone on Beacon Hill, the one Catherine and I bought in 1986 when she was pregnant with Olivia. I tapped the FaceTime icon on my iPhone, still not entirely comfortable with the thing, even after 2 years. Catherine had been the one who understood technology. She set up my first smartphone, showed me how to video call, laughed at me when I held it too close to my face. Catherine has been gone 2 years now. Heart failure. The cruelest irony of my life. 42 years saving other people's hearts. And I could not save hers. Olivia's face filled the screen after 3 rings. 39 years old, my daughter. She had Catherine's high cheekbones and my dark eyes. Her hair was pulled back in that sleek way she wore it when she wanted to look put together. "Dad." "Hey." She smiled. That warm smile that used to mean she had gotten an A on a test. "You remembered. Happy birthday, sweetheart." Of course I remembered. December 13th. Same day as always. She laughed. "Ryan's making dinner. I think he's burning the risotto again." She glanced off screen, shaking her head. "Thanks for the orchids, by the way. They're beautiful. Your mother always said white orchids for December birthdays." A pause. Catherine's name still landed differently between us. Softer. Heavier. "Listen," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Those papers you brought over last week, the estate planning documents. I signed them. They're on my desk whenever you want to pick them up." Something moved across her face. Too fast to read. A flicker behind the eyes. Like a card being turned over. "Great," she said. "Thanks, Dad. I'll grab them this weekend." "No rush. Just wanted you to know." A crash in her background. Ryan's voice muffled. Olivia rolled her eyes. "I should go rescue dinner." "Love you, Dad." "Love you too, honey." She reached toward the screen. I thought I tapped the red button. My thumb hit glass, but not the right spot. The image shrank to a small window in the corner. I set the phone on the arm of Catherine's reading chair. The green velvet one she had picked out in 1992, and stood to stretch my back. That is when I heard her voice again. But she was not talking to me. The old fool signed everything. Olivia's voice came through the speaker, bright with something that was not love. It was triumph. "We're golden, Ryan. Next week we file the guardianship petition. Get him declared incompetent. Sell the brownstone. 4.1 million. Plus his retirement accounts. 6.4 million total. And all of our problems disappear." I froze. My hand found the chair arm. I gripped it until my knuckles went white. Ryan's voice came next. "My son-in-law. The man I had welcomed into my family 9 years ago. You're sure he didn't read them? The power of attorney? The healthcare directive? Dad doesn't read anything I give him. Olivia laughed. Actually laughed. He trusts me. 42 years of saving strangers' lives, and he can't see what's right in front of him. Dr. Sands is coming next Sunday for the final evaluation. $4,000 and she'll write whatever we need. By Monday afternoon, he's in a facility, and we're free. Your mother would be proud. Ryan's voice carried a grin. Mom would have hated this. A pause. Then Olivia's voice went cold. But Mom's not here. And Dad built this brownstone for a family that doesn't exist anymore. It's just an old man in a big house. We need the money more than he needs the memories. I do not remember sitting back down. But I was in Catherine's chair, phone still on the armrest. Their voices still coming through, clear as a cardiac monitor in a quiet operating room. They talked for 3 more minutes. Details. Timelines. The name of the facility. Shady Brook. Out past Worcester. When the call finally disconnected, silence filled the room. The brownstone settled around me. The creak of old floorboards. The tick of the radiator pipes. The soft groan of 200-year-old beams adjusting to the December cold. I looked at my hands. These hands that had held 3,000 hearts. These hands that had never once trembled during a surgery. Not once in 42 years. They were trembling now. My first instinct was to call her back. Confront her. Scream. Demand an explanation. But I am a surgeon. We do not react in the operating room. We assess. We calculate. We find the problem. And we fix it with precision. I had 72 hours before Monday morning. 72 hours before my daughter filed paperwork that would strip me of my freedom, my home, my accounts, my dignity, everything I had spent a lifetime building. I looked at Catherine's portrait on the wall, painted in 2010 by a patient's daughter who wanted to thank me for saving her father's life. Catherine's eyes, warm and steady, looked back at me. She's trying to bury me, Catherine. I whispered. Our daughter is trying to bury me alive. The portrait did not answer. But somewhere deep in my chest, in the heart that had spent 42 years saving others, something shifted. Something cold and precise clicked into place. The same feeling I used to get before a difficult surgery. The absolute clarity that comes when you know exactly what needs to be done. I was not going to confront her. I was not going to beg. I was not going to call the police and hope for the best. I was going to operate. In surgery, the first step is always the same. Assess the damage. Determine what has been cut, what has been compromised, what is still viable. You do not pick up the scalpel until you understand exactly what you are dealing with. That night, I performed the assessment on my own life. I did not move from Catherine's chair for a long time. The phone sat on the armrest, screen dark now. The call had disconnected on its own. I picked it up and checked. The recording was there. iPhones save audio automatically when a FaceTime call does not terminate properly. Something about the system treating it as an unfinished session. I had never known that. Tonight, it saved me. I played it back 3 times. Each time, I hoped I would hear something different. A joke, a misunderstanding, some innocent explanation that would make the knot in my chest dissolve. But Olivia's voice came through the same way every time. Clear, calculated, cold. By the 3rd replay, I stopped hoping and started diagnosing. I stood and walked to my study, the room Catherine used to call my second operating room. Mahogany desk, green banker's lamp, walls lined with medical texts and framed certifications. 42 years of credentials watching me from behind glass. On the desk sat the folder Olivia had brought over last Tuesday. I remembered the visit clearly now. She had shown up around noon, dressed casually, carrying a manila folder and that smile. The one that used to mean she had aced an exam. The one I now understood meant something else entirely. Just some standard stuff, Dad. She had set the folder on my desk and opened it to the last page. Estate planning. Power of attorney. Healthcare directive. In case something happens. Just to be safe. She had pointed to the signature line. I had picked up my pen, the same Mont Blanc Catherine gave me for our 30th anniversary, and signed. I did not read the pages above my signature. Why would I? She was my daughter. She was a financial consultant. She had handled Catherine's affairs after the funeral with competence and grace. I trusted her the way I trusted my own hands. That trust was the incision she used to open me up. I opened the folder now. 6 pages, neatly stapled. My signature on page 5. Blue ink. I recognized the slight upward slant of the B in Brennan. The way I still cross my T's with a quick horizontal stroke, a habit from decades of writing surgical notes under time pressure. But the pages bothered me. I held page 1 under my desk lamp, and then page 5. The font on page 1 was slightly different. Narrower. The spacing between lines was tighter. The header read Durable Power of Attorney in a typeface that did not match the body text on page 5 where my signature sat. She had me sign a blank signature page. Or at minimum, a page with legitimate estate planning language. Then she attached different pages above it. Pages that gave her complete control over my finances, my property, my medical decisions. Everything. My signature was real. The document it was attached to was not. I set the papers down carefully, the way I would set down a contaminated instrument during surgery, deliberately, without touching anything else. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Let my surgeon's brain do what it does best. Break the problem into components. Identify the variables. Calculate the options. Variable 1. Olivia had a forged power of attorney giving her control over my finances. Variable 2. She had a forged healthcare directive giving her authority over my medical decisions. Variable 3. She was filing a guardianship petition Monday morning. Variable 4. A doctor named Sands was coming Sunday to provide a fraudulent competency evaluation. Variable 5. My total assets at risk. $4.1 million in the brownstone. $2.3 million in retirement accounts. $6.4 million. Variable 6. I had 72 hours. I pulled a yellow legal pad from my desk drawer and wrote down 3 options. The same way I used to write down surgical approaches before a complex operation. Option 1. Confront Olivia tomorrow. Show up at her house, play the recording, demand she stop. Problem. She would know I knew. She would accelerate the timeline. File for emergency guardianship. Claim. I was paranoid. Delusional. I would lose the element of surprise, and surprise was my only advantage. Option 2. Call the police tonight. Report attempted fraud. Problem. What fraud exactly? I signed the documents. My signature was real, even if the pages were switched. The recording might not be admissible. I had no forensic proof yet of the document alteration. The police would take a report and tell me to get a lawyer. Meanwhile, Olivia would find out and adapt. Option 3. Do what I had spent 42 years doing. Assess the problem completely. Design a solution with precision. Execute it step by step. With no wasted motion. No unnecessary risk. Build a case so airtight that when I finally opened her up on the operating table, there would be no escape. In cardiac surgery, we have a saying. You only get one chance to open the chest. If you go in unprepared, if you miss something on the scan, if your instruments are not ready, the patient dies. You do not get a second attempt. This was the same. I had one chance to do this right. If I moved too early, if I confronted her without enough evidence, she would regroup. Find another angle. Come at me again when I was not ready. And next time, I might not overhear the phone call. I circled option 3 on the legal pad. Then I wrote below it, in the same precise handwriting I had used on surgical notes for 4 decades. 72 hours. Build the case. Assemble the team. Execute with precision. I tore the page off, folded it, and put it in my breast pocket. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts to a name I had known for 20 years. A name connected to the most important surgery of my career. Paul Nakamura. 72 hours. In surgery. That is the difference between recovery and death. Between walking out of the hospital and being wheeled to the morgue. I had 72 hours to build something my daughter would never see coming, and I was going to use every single one of them. Every complex surgery requires a team. The surgeon does not work alone. He needs an anesthesiologist to keep the patient stable, a scrub nurse to hand him instruments at precisely the right moment, and someone monitoring the vitals in case everything goes sideways. I pressed Paul Nakamura's name at 11 minutes past 11 on a Friday night. He picked up on the second ring. Tom. His voice was alert. No trace of sleep. It's 11 at night. What's wrong? I need you to come over. Now. Tonight. A pause. 2 seconds. How bad? Bad enough that I'm calling you at 11 on a Friday. 25 minutes. He made it in 22. I heard the familiar rumble of his old Jeep Wrangler pulling into the narrow space behind my brownstone. Paul Nakamura, 68 years old, retired FBI. 20 years of friendship forged in the most unlikely of places. An operating room in 2003. When I held his 19-year-old son's failing heart in my hands for 6 hours, David survived. Paul never forgot. That kind of debt does not come with an expiration date. I opened the back door before he knocked. Paul stood on my steps, looking the way he always did. Lean and precise, silver hair cropped short, wire-rimmed glasses over dark eyes that still scanned rooms the way they used to scan crime scenes. "Show me," he said. No small talk. That was Paul. I handed him my phone with the recording cued. He listened in the middle of my kitchen, face unchanging. When it finished, he said, "Again." I played it again. This time, he closed his eyes, listening to the cadence, the confidence, the familiarity with details. When it ended, he opened his eyes. "This is organized, premeditated. They've been planning this for months, Tom. Nobody assembles a guardianship petition in a week. There are lawyer consultations, medical evaluations, financial documentation. This has been in motion since spring. Show me the papers." I gave him the folder. Paul spread the documents across my kitchen table and examined each page with forensic precision. His fingers touched only the edges. "Your signature is genuine," he said after 3 minutes. "But look at page 1. He held it under the overhead light. "The toner density is different, printed on a different machine. See the microdots along the margin? Every laser printer leaves them. These don't match page 5. I had noticed the font." Paul saw the machinery behind it. He set the papers down. "You said she's filing Monday morning?" "Monday. Doctor's evaluation Sunday afternoon. By Monday evening, I'm in a facility." Paul sat down. His posture shifted from friend to agent. 72 hours. We can't stop them from filing. But we can build a case that destroys their petition the moment it hits the judge's desk. Then we bury them with criminal charges. How? 3 things. He held up 3 fingers. 1. Solid proof of document forgery. I have contacts at a forensic lab. They can rush analysis. 2. Evidence of financial motive. Why now? What's driving this? If Ryan's drowning in debt, that establishes fraud motive. 3. He paused. Someone on the inside. Someone who tells us what they're planning in real time. I knew who he meant before he said the name. "Ethan," I said. "My grandson. He's 17. Comes here most weekends. Every Saturday. Volunteers at Mass General. Wants to be a doctor." I paused. "He's smart, Paul. Observant. Good qualities. But he's their kid. Paul's eyes were steady. You're asking him to choose sides, to spy on his own parents. If you bring him in, and he tells Olivia, this accelerates overnight. Emergency guardianship. They claim you're paranoid, delusional, turning their son against them. A judge could grant temporary custody in 24 hours. The weight of that settled between us. I thought about Ethan. Last Saturday, 5 hours here reviewing his cadaver lab notes. He asked me to explain aortic stenosis versus regurgitation. Stayed for dinner. Texts me every single day. Hey, Grandpa. How was your day? The only person who does. I think he'll help, I said. You think. But you don't know. Paul walked to the window. Snow beginning to fall on the cobblestone street outside. We test him first. Invite him tomorrow afternoon. Something normal. Lab review, homework. Feel him out. See if he's noticed anything strange at home. Do not tell him what's happening. Just listen. He headed for the back door, then stopped. Tomorrow morning I start digging into Ryan Morrison. Financials, business records, SEC disclosures. If that man's drowning, I'll find it before noon. His hand rested on the door frame. But Tom, if Ethan's not with us, if he tells his parents, we lose everything. You're betting it all on a 17-year-old kid. I thought about Ethan's hands last summer in the Mass General Volunteer Lab. Steady and careful as he sutured a practice wound on silicone. The attending had commented on it. Surgeon's hands, she said. He's got my hands. I told Paul. Steady under pressure. Paul studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Let's hope so. Because if he shakes, we're all on the table. The door closed. The Jeep rumbled away into the December night. Snow, falling heavier, muffling Beacon Hill into silence. I had a team forming, a plan taking shape. 72 hours ticking. Now I needed my grandson to be the man I believed he already was. In cardiac surgery, before you can fix anything, you have to find the bleed. You follow the blood trail until you locate the source. It does not matter how skilled you are with a suture if you cannot identify where the patient is hemorrhaging. Saturday morning, Paul found Ryan Morrison's bleed. It was massive. But first I waited. And waiting has never been my strength. I woke at 6, after 3 hours of something that resembled sleep, but felt more like lying in the dark with my eyes closed. Made coffee. Folgers. Same brand since 1978. Catherine used to tease me about it. You can afford the good stuff now, Tom, but I like the routine, the familiar weight of the tin, the same bitter taste every morning. Routine is what kept surgeons sane between emergencies. I carried my cup through the brownstone. Room by room. Not aimlessly. Deliberately. The way you walk through a patient's chart before surgery. Reviewing every detail. The living room. Catherine and I had painted these walls together in 1987. Warm cream with white trim. She was 7 months pregnant with Olivia. I told her she should not be on a ladder. She told me she had been climbing ladders her whole life and was not about to stop because of a baby. Stubborn woman. Beautiful, stubborn woman. The hallway. Olivia's growth chart still penciled on the doorframe of the coat closet. Catherine had started it when Olivia was 3. Little horizontal lines with dates written beside them. The last one said OB, age 12, 4 feet 11 inches. After that, Olivia decided she was too old for measuring. The kitchen. Remodeled in 2001 when Olivia was in college. Catherine chose the marble countertops. I installed the induction cooktop myself because Catherine had read an article about gas stoves and indoor air quality. Induction. No gas. Important detail. I filed it away. The study. My second operating room. Where last night I had discovered the forgery that changed everything. I ended up back in the kitchen at noon, staring at my phone, when Paul finally called. "Tom, I've got what we need." His voice had that flat quality. FBI flat. The sound of a man reporting findings without editorial. Just facts. How bad? Bad enough to explain everything. I heard papers shuffling on his end. Ryan Morrison is drowning. Credit card debt across 7 cards, 193,000. Business loans from a failed crypto venture, 812,000. Margin calls he couldn't cover, 600,000. Total debt, outstanding, $1.6 million. I set my coffee cup down on the counter. Carefully. His income, Paul continued, 74,000 a year. Mid-level fund manager. Except he's not anymore. He was terminated 8 months ago for what his firm called performance issues. He hasn't told Olivia. Still leaves the house every morning in a suit. Comes home at 6. But he's not going to an office. He's been day trading from a coffee shop in Cambridge, hemorrhaging what little cash he has left. 8 months, I said. He's been pretending to work for 8 months. It gets worse. I called a contact at the SEC, asked them to run Ryan Morrison through their database. Paul paused. The kind of pause that meant the next sentence would change something. 2021. The SEC opened an investigation into Ryan's previous firm. 3 formal complaints from elderly clients. Allegations that Ryan convinced them to move retirement funds into high-risk investments. 2 of those clients lost over $300,000 each. My hand tightened on the phone. The investigation went nowhere, Paul said. Insufficient evidence. The firm settled quietly. Ryan moved to a new company. But Tom, the pattern is there. This is not the first time Ryan Morrison has looked at an older person and seen a wallet. He's done this before. He's tried. Those clients were strangers. This time he married into it. Another pause. Tom, your son-in-law didn't just stumble into debt and get desperate. He's a predator. He targets vulnerable people, and now he's got the perfect target. A 70-year-old widower with $6.4 million in assets and a daughter willing to do the paperwork. I stood at the kitchen window looking out at the back garden. Catherine's rose bushes, dormant now under the December frost. She had planted them the spring after we moved in. 1987. Olivia was a baby in a carrier on the back porch while Catherine dug in the soil. That baby was now helping a predator drain me dry. What about the SEC? I asked. Can they move on Ryan now? I flagged it. My contact's interested. But federal investigations take time. Months. Maybe longer. That won't help us Monday morning. Paul exhaled. However, when this all comes together, the SEC charges stack on top of the elder abuse charges. Ryan Morrison is not looking at 5 years, Tom. He's looking at 13 to 15. Good. The word rose in my throat before I could stop it. Not a word a father should think. But I thought it anyway. What about the inside source? Paul asked. Ethan, have you reached out? I looked down at my phone. A text had come in 20 minutes ago while I was on the call with Paul. From Ethan. Grandpa free this afternoon? Want to show you my cadaver lab report. Got an A. Simple. Eager. The text of a 17-year-old who had no idea what was happening around him. Who still thought the world was a place where grandfathers were safe and mothers told the truth. He's coming this afternoon, I said. Good. Remember, do not tell him anything yet. Just listen. Feel him out. I stared at Ethan's text for a long time after Paul hung up. My grandson was biking over to show me a lab report. He was proud of his grade. He wanted to share it with me, and I was about to sit across from him and assess whether he could be turned into a spy against his own parents. 3,000 hearts I had held in my hands. 3,000 lives depending on my precision. But none of them felt as heavy as this, because those patients were strangers. Ethan was my blood. I texted back. Come over at 1. I'll be here. Proud of you, kiddo. Then I set the phone down and stared at the garden. Catherine's roses, sleeping under frost, waiting for spring. I wondered if anything in this family would ever bloom again. The hardest conversation I have ever had was not telling a patient's family their loved one did not make it off the table. I have done that 43 times in my career. Each one carved a notch in me, but none of them compared to sitting across from my 17-year-old grandson and deciding whether to ask him to betray his own parents. Ethan arrived at 12:55. I heard his bike chain clicking up the cobblestone street before I saw him. He leaned the bike against the iron railing and took the front steps 2 at a time. I opened the door before he could ring the bell. "Grandpa." He grinned. That open, easy smile of a kid who had not yet learned to hide things. 17, all elbows and angles, wearing a gray MIT sweatshirt and jeans. His dark hair fell across his forehead the same way mine had at that age. Wire-rimmed glasses, same as Paul's, same as mine before I switched to contacts for surgery. Looking at Ethan was like looking into a mirror that showed me 53 years ago. "Hey kiddo, come in." He dropped his backpack by the door and pulled out a stapled packet. "Look at this. 94%. Dr. Okafor said my dissection notes were the best in the volunteer cohort." He held it up like a trophy. I took it. Read through the first page. Precise handwriting. Detailed observations about thoracic anatomy. Correct identification of every major vessel. The kid was good. Better than good. He had the eye. "This is excellent work, Ethan. Your labeling on the subclavian artery is cleaner than half the residents I trained." His face lit up. That was what he came for. Not just the grade. The validation from someone who had done this for real. I felt a twist of guilt in my chest because I was about to use that trust for something else entirely. We talked about the lab for 20 minutes. I walked him through pulmonary circulation, explained common surgical complications, answered his questions about med school applications. Normal. Safe. The kind of Saturday afternoon we had shared 100 times. Then I poured him a glass of water and sat back down. "So," I said, keeping my voice light. "How's school? How are things at home?" Ethan took a long drink. Set the glass down. Centered it carefully on the coaster. A small gesture, but I noticed it. Precise. Deliberate. The gesture of someone buying time before answering. "School's fine," he said. "Home is." He trailed off. Shrugged. "Home is what?" He would not meet my eyes. His fingers traced the edge of the coaster. "Mom's been weird lately. I kept my breathing even." "Weird how?" "She keeps asking me questions." "About you." He looked up now. Frustrated. Like, does Grandpa forget things? Does he repeat himself? Does he ever seem confused about what day it is? She asked me to start writing things down. Like a journal. "Just in case Grandpa has an episode," she said. "For his health." My chest tightened, but my face stayed neutral. 42 years of delivering bad news to families had taught me how to control my expression under any circumstances. "And what do you tell her?" "I tell her no. Because it's true." Ethan's voice was firm. "You don't forget anything, Grandpa. You remember the exact date of every surgery you've told me about. You remember Mom's teachers from middle school by name. You remembered that my lab partner's name is Priya when I only mentioned her once 3 months ago. Did your mother say why she wanted you to write things down?" "She said it's normal for people your age. That we need to keep track." His hands twisted together. "But last week, she said something else. She said, if Grandpa ever does something confused, text me right away, even if it seems small." She made me promise. He looked at me. Scared now. Searching my face. "Grandpa, you're not sick, right?" "No, Ethan. I am not sick." "Then why is she acting like you're losing your mind?" I stood and walked to my study. Opened the desk drawer. Inside was the old digital recorder I had bought that morning at a pawn shop in Dorchester. Cash purchase. No receipt linked to my name. I had transferred the audio from my phone to this device. Old school. Harder to trace. I came back to the living room and sat across from Ethan. His eyes fixed on the recorder in my hand. "I'm going to play you something," I said. "It's going to be difficult to hear, but I need you to listen to all of it." I pressed play. Olivia's voice filled the room. "The old fool signed everything. We're golden, Ryan. Sell the brownstone. 4.1 million. Get him. Declared incompetent. By Monday afternoon, he's in a facility. And we're free." I watched Ethan's face drain of color. His mouth opened slightly. His hands went still. "That's Mom," he whispered. "Yes. She's talking about putting you in a home. Selling this house." "Yes." Ethan stood up so fast his glass wobbled on the table. "That's insane. You don't need a home. You don't need a guardian. You're the sharpest person I know." He was breathing hard. "This is fraud. This is illegal." "Yes, it is." He turned to me, and I saw it happen. The exact moment. Every illusion he had about his mother cracked open, like a chest under a sternal saw. "The questions," he said slowly. "The journal. She wanted me to make up evidence. She wanted me to help her prove you were incompetent. That's what I believe, yes." His hands balled into fists at his sides. 17 years old. Finding out his mother was building a case to destroy his grandfather. Using him as a tool without his knowledge. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. No hesitation. No deliberation. Immediate. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small flip phone. Prepaid. Cash purchase from a convenience store in Roxbury. Not connected to any family plan. Untraceable. "I need you to be my eyes and ears," I said. "Your parents talk when you're around. They think you're just a kid. They don't watch what they say. I need you to record those conversations. Send the audio files to this email address." I handed him a slip of paper. "Delete everything after you send. Keep the phone hidden. Power it off unless you're recording." Ethan took the phone. Turned it over in his hands. Small. Outdated. Anonymous. "You want me to spy on my parents. I want you to help me survive." He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he looked at me with eyes that were no longer a child's. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." At 4 o'clock, Ethan got on his bike and rode down the street toward the T station. I watched him disappear around the corner of Charles Street. And I felt two things at once. Hope, because I was no longer alone in this. And shame, deep and cold, because I had just handed a 17-year-old a scalpel and asked him to cut into his own family. Catherine would have hated this. She always believed families should protect each other. Should be safe harbors, not battlefields. But Catherine never had to fight her own daughter. I closed the door and stood in the hallway. Her portrait watched me from the wall. Those warm, steady eyes. "I'm sorry," I told her. "But I'm protecting what's left of us. Even if it looks ugly from where you are." In 42 years of medicine, I have read thousands of patient charts. Thousands. I know what a real medical record looks like, the way a concert pianist knows real music from a child banging on keys. The formatting. The clinical language. The specific way doctors abbreviate, document, and timestamp. So when Paul slid 6 pages across my kitchen table Saturday evening, I knew within seconds they were fake. But knowing they were fake and understanding what they meant were two different things. Paul arrived at 7 with a folder tucked under his arm and that flat expression he wore when delivering findings. He did not bother with hello, just set the folder on the table, pulled out a chair, and said, "This is worse than we thought. Tell me. This afternoon I got a call from Dr. James Park, Chief of Neurology, at Mass General. Your colleague for what? 25 years. 27. He called me because he couldn't reach you. Said he'd been trying your cell since Thursday." Paul opened the folder. "Here's why. Last week, James was reviewing referral records in their shared database. The system flags patients whose insurance hits multiple network clinics. Your name flagged. I stared at him. My name. Your insurance number was used at a clinic in Revere, a place called Coastal Memory Associates. Strip mall operation off Route 1. James thought it was a data error. So he pulled the record. Then he pulled 5 more. Paul spread 6 pages across the table in a neat row. 6 appointments, Tom. March through November. All under your name. All at different clinics across the greater Boston area. I pulled the first page toward me. March 15th. Coastal Memory Associates, Revere. Chief complaint. Patient reports, increasing forgetfulness, difficulty with word retrieval. Assessment. Mild cognitive impairment. Recommend, follow-up. Signed by Dr. Victoria Sands. May 8th. Brookline Neurological Center. Chief complaint. Family reports patient confusion regarding dates and locations. Assessment. Progressive short-term memory loss. Consistent with early-stage dementia. Signed by Dr. Victoria Sands. July 20th. Commonwealth Psychiatric Group. Somerville. Assessment. Significant cognitive decline. Patient unable to manage finances independently. Recommend. Power of attorney activation. September. October. November. Each one worse than the last. Each one signed by the same doctor. Each one describing a man I did not recognize. A man who could not remember his address, who forgot his daughter's name, who wandered the house at night confused about where he was. I set the last page down. November 29th. 2 weeks ago. Recommend immediate placement in assisted living facility. Patient represents a danger to himself if left unsupervised. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. I have never been to any of these places, I said. My voice came out quiet, controlled. The voice I used when a surgery went wrong and the team needed me steady. I have never met this Dr. Victoria Sands. I have never set foot in a strip mall clinic in Revere. I know, Paul said. Because you didn't go. Olivia did. He pulled out his phone, showed me a screen of call records. James had his administrator pull the appointment booking records. All 6 appointments were scheduled by the same phone number, Olivia's cell. She called each clinic. Identified herself as your daughter and healthcare proxy. Said you were too confused to come in yourself. The clinics conducted phone consultations, documented everything based on her descriptions. Billed your insurance. They never examined me, never met you, never saw your face. They took your daughter's word and built a medical file around it. I looked at the 6 pages laid out chronologically across my table. March, May, July, September, October, November. 7 months. 7 months of systematic fabrication. And Dr. Sands? I asked. She signed all 6. Different clinic addresses, but the same physician. She's a hired pen, Tom. Takes referrals from people who need medical documentation created to order. My FBI contact says her name has surfaced in 2 other elder abuse investigations in Massachusetts, but nothing ever stuck. Until now. Until now. Paul leaned back. Olivia paid her $8,000 total over 7 months. $2,000 up front in March, then $1,000 per consultation after that. Cash payments. But Sands is sloppy. She deposited them into her personal account within 48 hours each time. The paper trail is clean. I stood from the table because I could not sit anymore. 7 months. My daughter had spent 7 months building a medical history that described a man losing his mind. Step by step, appointment by appointment, fabricating symptoms I never had, documenting a decline that never happened. She did it the way I taught her to approach any long-term project. When Olivia was 14, she asked me how I prepared for complex surgeries. I told her the same thing. I told my residents, start months in advance. Build your understanding layer by layer. Never rush. Never skip steps. By the time you enter that operating room, you should know every possible outcome before you make the first incision. She had listened. She had learned. And she had used it against me. I walked to the hallway. Catherine's portrait hung there in its simple gold frame. Her eyes looked back at me, warm and patient, the way they always did. She has your smile, Catherine, I whispered. Your face. Your voice. But somewhere along the way, she learned to use all of it as a weapon. I turned back to Paul. Dr. Sands is coming to my house tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, for what Olivia called the final evaluation, the one that generates the certificate for the guardianship petition. Paul nodded slowly. A thin smile crossed his face. The smile of a man who saw the trap forming before anyone said it aloud. Then we let her come, he said. And we make sure every single word she says is recorded. There are things in this world that have no price tag. Not because they are worthless, but because they carry the weight of a lifetime inside them. A wedding ring is not gold and diamond. It is every morning you woke up beside her. Every argument you survived. Every quiet evening on the couch when neither of you needed to speak. Catherine's engagement ring held 42 years of that weight, until my daughter turned it into $4,800 at a pawn shop in Somerville. After Paul left, I went upstairs. I do not know why. Some instinct pulling me toward the bedroom, toward Catherine's things. Maybe because every new discovery about Olivia made me need to be closer to what was real, what was true, what had not been corrupted. Our bedroom. The same room we had shared for 38 years. The same four-poster bed Catherine picked out at an antique shop in Vermont on our 5th anniversary. The same dresser with her perfume bottles still lined up the way she left them. Lavender lotion. The faint ghost of it still clung to the curtains if you pressed your face close enough. On the dresser sat her jewelry box. Walnut wood with brass hinges. I had bought it for her in 1990. Our 10th anniversary. She loved it because it was simple. No velvet lining, no music box mechanism, just clean wood and careful joints. I opened it. Her pearl earrings. The silver chain with the small sapphire pendant. A tangle of bracelets she never bothered to sort. And an empty slot. The velvet indent where her engagement ring had sat for 2 years since I placed it there after the funeral. Empty. The memory came sharp. 14 months ago. October of last year. Olivia had come over on a Saturday afternoon. Casual visit. Coffee in the kitchen. She mentioned it almost as an afterthought while putting on her coat to leave. Hey Dad, can I borrow Mom's ring? I want to take it to a jeweler for appraisal. For insurance purposes. You know, just in case something happens to it. We should know its value. I had hesitated. Not because I suspected anything. Just because taking it out of the box felt like removing something sacred from its altar. But Olivia had smiled. That warm smile. Catherine's smile. I'll bring it back next week, she said. Promise. 14 months. She never brought it back. I had asked once, maybe 2 months later. She said the jeweler was still working on the paperwork. I did not ask again, because you are supposed to trust your daughter. I stared at the empty slot. Then I walked to my study, sat down at the computer, and opened a browser. My fingers typed slowly. I was not fast with computers, but I was thorough. Pawnshop engagement ring 2.1 carat solitaire Boston area. It took 4 minutes. 4 minutes to find the listing on a second-hand jewelry site connected to a shop in Somerville. Estate piece. 2.1 carat round brilliant platinum band, circa 1982. Excellent condition. Sold October previous year. $4,800. Sold. Not listed. Sold. 14 months ago. The same month Olivia borrowed it. I sat at the desk and stared at the screen until the words blurred. $4,800. That was what my daughter decided Catherine's ring was worth. Less than the monthly lease on Ryan's BMW. I closed my eyes, and I was 29 years old again, standing on the Harvard Bridge in March of 1982. Freezing wind coming off the Charles River. Catherine beside me in that red wool coat she wore everywhere that winter. I had saved for 8 months on a surgical residence salary. $28,000 a year before taxes. 8 months of packing lunches, skipping coffee, wearing the same 3 shirts in rotation. The ring in my coat pocket felt like it weighed 10 pounds. I got down on one knee. The concrete was cold and wet. Catherine looked down at me, and her face did something I had never seen before. All the composure, all the quiet confidence she carried like armor, fell away. Her eyes filled, and her hand came up to her mouth. "Tom," she whispered. "Tom, get up. Your knee." "Catherine Brennan," I said. Wrong name. She was still Catherine Walsh then. I was so nervous I called her by my last name before I had even asked the question. She laughed, tears running down her face, laughing into the March wind. "Yes," she said. "Yes, you ridiculous man. Get up off the ground." I slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. The jeweler had sized it based on a ring I had secretly borrowed from her apartment the week before. She wore it every single day for 40 years. Through 2 pregnancies, through 3 decades of dishwashing and gardening, through chemotherapy when it hung loose on her thinning finger. She wore it until the day I took it off her hand at the funeral home because the director said jewelry should be removed before cremation. I had placed it in the walnut box, in the velvet slot, and I had believed it was safe. $4,800. My daughter sold 42 years of love for less than a used car. I stood up from the desk. I did not cry. I did not throw anything. I walked to the bedroom and stood in the doorway, looking at the empty jewelry box. The room still held that faint lavender trace. And something inside me shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Like a switch being thrown in an operating room. The overhead light changing from warm to surgical white, from soft to merciless. Up until this moment, I had been a father trying to protect himself, trying to survive, trying to keep what was mine. But standing in that doorway, staring at the empty slot where Catherine's ring should have been, I became something else. A surgeon preparing to remove a cancer. And I was done being careful about the incision. I picked up my phone. Called Paul. He answered on the first ring. "Tom, it's midnight. We need the lawyer tonight." "Tom." "She sold Catherine's ring, Paul." My voice was flat. Scalpel, flat. 14 months ago. Pawned it in Somerville for $4,800. My wife's engagement ring. The one I saved 8 months to buy on a resident's salary. She sold it to pay off a credit card. Silence on the line. Then Paul's voice. Quieter. "I'm sorry, Tom." "Don't be sorry. Be useful. Call the lawyer. I want the brownstone out of Olivia's name before sunrise. I want a trust, irrevocable, in Ethan's name. And Paul." I paused. Let the silence stretch. "I want her to lose everything. The way she decided Catherine's ring was worth $4,800. Another silence. Then Paul said, "Let me call Martin Chen, estate attorney. He owes me from a case in 2015. I'll have him at your kitchen table within the hour. Push him." "I'll push." Paul paused. "Tom, you're sure about this? Once the trust is signed, even you can't undo it." I looked at the empty jewelry box on the dresser. Catherine's walnut box with its brass hinges and its hollow where love used to sit. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. In surgery, there is a procedure called a bypass. When an artery is blocked, when the blood cannot flow through the natural channel, you reroute it. You build a new path around the obstruction, so the heart can keep pumping. You do not waste time trying to clear the blockage. You go around it. At 1 o'clock Sunday morning, I performed a bypass on my own estate. Martin Chen arrived at 12:58. Paul had called him 40 minutes earlier. The man showed up in a pressed shirt and vest, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than my career. 55 years old, neat and precise. The kind of man who ironed his shirts even when called out of bed at midnight on a Saturday. Paul made introductions. Martin shook my hand. Firm grip, direct eye contact. He sat at my kitchen table, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a yellow legal pad. "Frank sent me your documents 2 hours ago," he said. Paul's real name was not Frank, but Martin knew him under a different identity from a case in 2015. "I did not ask what your daughter is doing, Dr. Brennan. This is textbook elder abuse. Forged financial documents, fabricated medical records, systematic fraud, all prosecutable." "The problem," I said, "the problem is timing." Martin tapped his pen on the pad. "If she files that guardianship petition Monday morning, she will have temporary legal control over your assets before you can fight back, including this house. A judge sees 6 months of medical documentation showing cognitive decline, a signed power of attorney, and a daughter requesting oversight. Temporary guardianship gets granted in hours. Reversing it takes months. So what do we do?" Martin turned the legal pad around so I could see the diagram he had drawn. A box labeled Irrevocable Living Trust with arrows pointing to 3 names. Mine, Ethan's, Martin's. "We take the house off the table," he said. "Literally. You transfer ownership of this brownstone into an irrevocable living trust. I become the trustee, the manager. Ethan becomes the beneficiary, the person who inherits when you pass." He pointed to the arrows. "The brownstone is no longer your legal property. You still live here. Nothing changes day to day. But on paper, Olivia cannot touch it. She cannot sell it. She cannot use it to pay debts. Even if a judge grants her guardianship over you, she will have 0 control over this asset. Because it's not mine anymore." "Correct. It belongs to the trust. And the trust is managed by me, not by your daughter." I stared at the diagram. Ethan's name in the beneficiary box. 17 years old. A kid who still texted me about lab reports and asked for help with physics homework. I was about to make him the legal owner of a $4.1 million property. "And she can't challenge it?" I asked. "She can try. But irrevocable means irrevocable. Once you sign, even you cannot undo it, Dr. Brennan. That is the double-edged nature of this instrument. It protects you absolutely from external threats. But it also means, if something changes, if Ethan were to turn against you, if circumstances shift, you cannot take the house back." Paul spoke from the doorway where he had been listening. "Tom, you understand what he's saying. You're betting everything on Ethan." I looked at the diagram again. Then I looked up at Paul. "In 2003, you sat in my waiting room for 6 hours while I held your son's heart in my hands. You bet everything on me that night. On my hands. On my precision. That's different." "No, it isn't. You trusted me because you knew what I was capable of. I trust Ethan because I know what he is. That kid loves me for who I am, not for what I own." I turned back to Martin. "Draw up the papers." Martin nodded. He pulled a laptop and a portable printer from his briefcase. For the next 45 minutes, he typed, while Paul and I drank coffee. The portable printer hummed, spitting out pages one by one. Martin explained each section as it printed. Grantor, trustee, beneficiary, property description, successor, provisions, tax, implications. It was dense legal language. But the core was simple. I was giving up ownership to protect what I had built. At 1:45, Martin slid the final document across the table. "Sign here, here, and here." He pointed to 3 highlighted lines. I picked up my pen, the same Mont Blanc Catherine gave me for our 30th anniversary. The same pen my daughter had watched me use to sign the forged power of attorney 9 days ago. This time, I read every word above my signature. Every clause. Every provision. Every comma. My hand was steady. Steadier than it had been in days. The way it always was when I knew exactly what I was doing. I signed 3 times. Martin witnessed. Paul countersigned as a secondary witness. Martin closed the folder, opened his laptop, and tapped a series of keys. Filing electronically now, he said. Oregon's system runs 24/7. Massachusetts does too. A few more keystrokes. Done. The state will process this overnight. By 8 tomorrow morning, this brownstone legally belongs to the trust. Ethan Morrison is the named beneficiary. I set the pen down on the table. It was done. 38 years of memories. Catherine and I painting walls. Olivia's first steps in the hallway. Christmas mornings in the living room. Catherine's last breath in the upstairs bedroom. All of it. The physical vessel that held all of it now belonged to a trust managed by a man I had met an hour ago and inherited by a boy who did not yet know. But I had not lost it. I had protected it. There is a difference. Martin packed his briefcase. Shook my hand. Dr. Brennan, I have seen ugly family situations in my career. This one ranks among the worst. But you have a solid foundation now. Legally, she cannot knock it down. After they left, I stood alone in the kitchen. 2:15 in the morning. The brownstone was silent. That deep, middle-of-the-night silence, when even the old beams stopped creaking. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Grandpa, Mom and Ryan just opened a bottle of wine. Mom said, Dr. Sands is coming tomorrow afternoon. Last piece of the puzzle. By Monday evening, we're done. Ryan said. Finally. They clinked glasses. I recorded it. I read the text twice. They were celebrating. Drinking wine. Toasting to my destruction. They had no idea that the house they planned to sell was already beyond their reach, that the foundation they intended to crack had been quietly reinforced while they drank. I texted back 3 words. Good. Stay safe. Then I added one more line. Let them celebrate. They don't know the patient is already off the table. I set the phone on the counter and looked around the kitchen. Catherine's kitchen. Ethan's kitchen now. Legally. My kitchen still. In every way that mattered. Tomorrow, Dr. Sands would walk through my front door, expecting to find a confused old man ready to be certified incompetent. She would find exactly that. And everything she said, everything Olivia said, everything that passed between them would be captured on camera. The trap was almost built. One more piece. One more day. Then, I would close the chest. Sunday morning. 22 hours until Olivia files the petition. For the first time in my career, I was about to do something I had never done before. I was going to pretend to be a patient instead of a doctor. And the performance had to be flawless. Paul showed up at 10 with a canvas bag slung over his shoulder and that look on his face. The one that meant he had been awake for hours, planning something he was not entirely comfortable with. Let's talk about this afternoon, he said, dropping the bag on the kitchen table. Dr. Sands is coming at 2. She's here to certify you as incompetent. Your daughter is paying her $4,000 to write whatever Olivia tells her to write. He unzipped the bag. You're going to give them exactly what they expect. You want me to act confused. I want you to survive. Paul pulled out a wrinkled button-down shirt. Light blue, slightly yellowed at the collar. Put this on. Misbutton it. One button off, so the hem hangs crooked. I took the shirt. Held it between my fingers. 42 years I had worn pressed surgical scrubs, tailored suits, clean white coats with my name embroidered above the pocket. This shirt looked like something from a donation bin. There's more, Paul said. He pulled out loose-fitting khaki pants, a size too large. Wear these without a belt. Let them sag. Leave your shoes untied. Not both. Just one. The left one. I stared at the costume laid out on my table. The uniform of a man who could not take care of himself. Body language. Paul continued. He was in full operational mode now. FBI training kicking in. Slow movements. Shuffle when you walk. Don't pick up your feet. Let your eyes drift around the room like you're looking for something you can't quite remember. When she asks questions, pause before answering. 3 to 5 seconds. Then give a wrong answer. Not wildly wrong. Just slightly off. Enough to seem confused, not enough to seem like you're performing. What kind of questions will she ask? Standard, cognitive assessment. What day is it? Who's the president? What's your address? What did you eat for breakfast? Simple things. Paul sat down across from me. Here's the key, Tom. You're not drunk. You're not crazy. You're lost. There's a difference. A confused person searches for words, reaches for memories that slip away, gets frustrated with himself. You need to show frustration. Show that you know something is wrong but can't quite grasp what. I thought about the thousands of patients I had seen over 4 decades. The ones who came in disoriented after surgery. The ones whose anesthesia took longer to clear. I knew exactly what cognitive confusion looked like. I had observed it, documented it, treated it. Now I had to become it. Let's rehearse, Paul said. For the next 90 minutes, Paul fired questions at me while I stumbled through answers. He played the doctor. I played the patient. What day is it today, Mr. Brennan? I paused. Let my eyes drift to the window. Drift back. Today is Saturday? No. Wait. It might be Sunday. I'm not entirely sure. Good. Slower on the correction. You're not guessing. You're genuinely uncertain. Can you tell me your home address? I recited the street name correctly but gave the wrong house number. Off by 10. Who is the current president? I frowned. Squinted. That's... Give me a moment. Pause. Biden? No. The other one. I can never remember. Better. Now. The props. Paul walked to the kitchen, poured half a cup of coffee, and left it on the counter, cold. Opened the refrigerator door and left it ajar. Took my reading glasses from the desk and placed them on top of my head. When she arrives, the coffee is cold on the counter. The fridge is open. Your glasses are on your head, but you'll ask her if she's seen them. I looked around at the staged scene. My own home transformed into evidence of my decline. My kitchen made to look like the kitchen of a man losing his grip on reality. It was humiliating. I am a man who rebuilt hearts for a living, who calculated dosages in his head, who never once forgot a patient's name or medical history. And now I was rehearsing how to seem too confused to remember whether I had eaten breakfast. I know this is hard, Paul said quietly. He had seen it in my face. But this is how we get her. She walks in expecting a confused old man. She performs her evaluation. She accepts the money, and every second of it goes on record. He opened the canvas bag again and pulled out 3 devices. The first was a wall clock. Ordinary white face, black numbers. Paul unscrewed the back and showed me a pinhole camera embedded near the 12. Wide angle. Captures the entire living room. Goes on the wall behind your chair. The second was a picture frame. Silver border. Standard size. Inside was a photo of Catherine and me from our 25th anniversary. Paul showed me the lens hidden in the frame's lower edge. Bookshelf. Angled toward the couch where Sands will sit. The third was a wireless microphone. Smaller than a shirt button. Black. Nearly invisible. Inside seam of your shirt pocket. Picks up everything. Within 20 feet. Paul spent the next 20 minutes installing. Testing angles on his phone. Adjusting positions. When he finished, he showed me the feeds. 2 clear video angles covering the living room from different perspectives. Audio crisp and clear. Everything she says, Paul said. Everything Olivia says. The envelope. The money. The diagnosis. All of it. Recorded. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Grandpa. Just heard Mom on the phone. She said, Dr. Sands. 2 o'clock, right? We need the certificate today. 4,000. Same as we discussed. I recorded it. I showed the text to Paul. $4,000, he said. That's not a consultation fee. That's a bribe. And now we have her confirming the amount before the visit. He looked at me. Tom, by 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll have video evidence of a licensed physician accepting cash to fabricate a medical evaluation. That's a felony. Multiple felonies. I looked at the costume laid out on the chair. The wrinkled shirt. The loose pants. The staged confusion of a man I was not. I'm going to put that on, I said. And I'm going to stand in my own home and pretend to be someone who can't remember his own name. For my daughter. For evidence. Paul corrected. For justice, I said. I picked up the shirt and walked toward the stairs. At the landing, I stopped. Turned back. Paul. After this is over. After she's in handcuffs and the cameras are off and the evidence is filed. I held his gaze. I never want to feel this small again. Paul nodded. You won't have to. After today, you'll never have to pretend to be anything less than what you are. I went upstairs to change. In the bathroom mirror, I misbuttoned the shirt, let the hem hang crooked, put my glasses on top of my head, looked at myself, 70 years old, 3,000 hearts, a career built on precision and dignity, and now, a costume designed to erase all of it. This is not how a surgeon's legacy ends, I told myself. This is how he fights when the disease is in his own bloodline. At 1:45, a black Audi pulled up in front of the brownstone. A woman stepped out from the driver's side. Tall blonde hair in a tight bun, navy blazer over a cream blouse. She carried a leather medical bag. Professional. Polished. The passenger door opened. Olivia. My daughter in a gray cashmere sweater, face arranged into an expression of concern. The devoted daughter bringing medical help to her declining father. They walked toward my front steps. I shuffled back from the window, took my position in Catherine's reading chair, adjusted the crooked shirt. The cold coffee sat on the kitchen counter. The refrigerator door stood open. Paul was in the back bedroom monitoring camera feeds. The doorbell rang. I shuffled to the door, pulled it open with the uncertain expression of a man not entirely sure why someone was ringing his bell. Dad, Olivia said softly. The voice you use with a child. This is Dr. Sands. Remember I mentioned her? I scheduled a little checkup for you. I let my eyes drift between them. Slow. Unfocused. A doctor. Did you tell me? I don't remember. It's okay, Mr. Brennan. Dr. Sands extended her hand. I shook it weakly. May I come in? They followed me to the living room. Sands took the couch, clipboard and pen out. Olivia near the doorway, arms crossed. Mr. Brennan, can you tell me what day it is today? I paused, eyes drifting to the window. Today is Saturday? I think it's Saturday, she wrote. Did not correct me. Your home address? I gave the street name correctly. Wrong number. Off by 15. Who is the current president? I frowned. Squinted. That's Obama? No. I get them confused. More writing. No follow-up. She was not evaluating me. She was filling out a predetermined form. How are you managing daily tasks? Eating? Bathing? Getting dressed? I looked down at my misbuttoned shirt. Sometimes I forget whether I've eaten. Olivia stepped forward. voice thick with practiced worry. "Doctor, he's been getting worse. Last Monday he left the stove on all night. I came over Tuesday, and the whole kitchen smelled like gas. I'm terrified." I kept my face blank. Filed the lie with surgical precision. "I do not have a gas stove. Catherine and I installed an induction cooktop in 2001. There is no gas line to the kitchen. Has not been for 23 years. My daughter just told a physician that my gas stove was left on in a house that does not have gas." Dr. Sands closed her clipboard. "Mr. Brennan, I'd like to step outside with your daughter for a moment. Will you be all right?" I nodded. Settled back like a man content to wait because he could not remember what else there was to do. They stepped onto the front stoop. The door did not close all the way. 2-inch gap. The wall clock camera had a partial angle. The wireless microphone in my shirt pocket was live. 20-foot range. I sat still and listened. Olivia's voice first. "Doctor, can you write the certificate today? I need it for the filing tomorrow morning." Dr. Sands. Cautious. "Based on what I observed, I can document significant cognitive decline. However, we discussed 4,000. Olivia's voice sharpened. "Here's the full amount." A pause. The soft sound of an envelope opening. A thumb riffling paper. Then Sands's voice. Lower. "Transactional. 4,000. Yes. I'll have the certificate emailed by 6 this evening. My recommendation will state the patient requires immediate supervised care in a residential facility." "Thank you," Olivia said. "I knew I could count on you." The door swung wider. Sands stepped back inside. Smile in place. "Mr. Brennan, I'm recommending some additional support. A place with round-the-clock care. For your safety." I let my face crumple. "A place? What kind of place?" "A safe place, Dad." Olivia beside me. Hand on my shoulder. "Somewhere people can help you." Sands shook my hand and left. Olivia crouched in front of my chair. Took my hands. Eyes wet. "Dad, I love you. Everything I'm doing is because I love you." I looked at her. Voice wavering. "You're a good daughter, Olivia." She squeezed my hands. Walked to the door. It closed. The Audi started. Pulled away. Silence reclaimed the brownstone. 30 seconds. Then I stood. Walked to the window. Watched the Audi disappear around the corner, onto Charles Street. Paul stepped out from the back bedroom. Tablet in hand. Tapped the screen and turned it toward me. Crystal clear. 2 angles. Olivia on the stoop, hand extending the envelope. Sands opening it. Thumb counting bills. Her voice without interference. 4,000. Yes. Certificate by 6. Paul played it twice. Bribery. Medical fraud. Criminal conspiracy. Fabrication of medical records. He set the tablet down. All on camera. All admissible. "Tom, we got her." I pulled off the wrinkled shirt. Tossed it on the couch. Stood in my undershirt in the living room and breathed. The costume was off. The performance over. I was done pretending to be less than what I am. "First, do no harm," I said quietly. The oldest oath in medicine. The one I swore 50 years ago. But when the cancer is in your own family, sometimes you have to cut deep to save what's left. Paul nodded. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. When they walk through that door thinking they're taking you away, they'll find out the surgeon they underestimated already removed the tumor." I looked around my living room. Catherine's chair. The portrait on the wall. The brownstone that now belonged to a trust in Ethan's name. Everything they wanted was already beyond their reach, and everything they had done was captured on a device smaller than a button. Tomorrow, I would stop pretending. Tomorrow, my daughter would learn the last lesson I would ever teach her. That the man she dismissed as a confused old fool had been watching, recording, and building a case with the same precision he once used to rebuild hearts. and his hands had never been steadier. The night before a major surgery, I never slept well. My mind would run through every step, every possible complication, every contingency plan if something went wrong on the table. I would lie in the dark, visualizing the procedure from first incision to final suture, seeing it unfold behind my closed eyes like a film I had already watched 100 times. Sunday night was no different. Except this time, the patient on the table was my own family. After Paul left at 4, I spent the evening at the dining table, organizing, arranging, the way I used to lay out instruments on a surgical tray before a complex bypass. Everything in its place, everything within reach, the forged power of attorney. 6 pages, my signature on page 5, fraudulent content on pages 1 through 4. The 6 fake medical records from Dr. Sands, March through November, each one describing a man who did not exist. Brad's financial records. Paul had printed them that afternoon. Ryan Morrison's debt laid out in black and white. $1.6 million. The SEC investigation file. 3 elderly clients exploited. Pattern established. The FaceTime recording. Saved on 2 devices. My phone and the digital recorder. The video from this afternoon. 2 angles. $4,000 passing from my daughter's hand to a corrupt physician. Tyler's 18 text messages. Screenshots printed. Timestamps visible. And the trust documents. Filed. Recorded. Irrevocable. I arranged them chronologically across the table. March through today. 9 months of my daughter's architecture laid bare. Each document, a brick in the case we had built. Each piece of evidence, a suture holding the whole thing together. At 7, Paul called. "It's confirmed," he said. "Agent Sofia Rivera, FBI Elder Abuse Task Force. She'll be at your house at 8:30 tomorrow morning. She's bringing 2 field agents. They'll park down the street in an unmarked vehicle and wait for your signal." "What signal?" "Text me 1 word. Now." I relay to Rivera. "They move. 30 seconds from your front door. And if Olivia and Ryan try to leave before we're ready, I'll be in the kitchen. Back door covered. Rivera's team has the front. They won't make it past the porch." Paul paused. "Tom, you need to understand something. Once Rivera walks in, there's no taking it back. Your daughter goes to federal custody. Your son-in-law goes to federal custody. Their lives are over as they know them. I understand. Do you? Because tomorrow morning, you're going to look your daughter in the eye. The girl you raised. The girl who has Catherine's face. And you're going to watch federal agents put handcuffs on her. Are you ready for that?" I thought about Catherine's empty jewelry box upstairs. The ring slot with nothing in it. $4,800. I thought about 6 fake medical records describing a man losing his mind. I thought about Olivia's voice on that recording, bright and cold. The old fool signed everything. "I'm ready," I said. "All right. Get some sleep." I did not get sleep. At 9, my phone buzzed. "Ethan, Grandpa. Mom and Ryan just opened champagne." Mom raised her glass and said, "By noon tomorrow, we're millionaires. Dad will be in Shady Brook. And the brownstone goes on the market next week." Ryan said, "To freedom." They clinked glasses. They're laughing. I recorded everything. I read it twice. Set the phone down. Picked it up again. Typed back. "Thank you, Ethan. Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. I love you." 3 dots appeared. Then, "I love you too, Grandpa. See you in the morning." I stared at that message for a long time. Ethan had not told me he loved me since he was 13 years old. 4 years of silence on those words. And now, on the night before everything collapsed, he said it. Because he knew what tomorrow meant. He knew he might lose both his parents in a single morning. And he chose me anyway. I turned off the kitchen light and went upstairs. The bedroom was dark. December cold, pressing against the windows. I lay down on the bed, still in my clothes. Did not bother pulling back the covers. The ceiling above me was the same ceiling Catherine and I had stared at for 38 years. The same plaster with the hairline crack near the light fixture that I kept meaning to repair. She used to trace it with her eyes when she could not sleep. Said it looked like a river on a map. Catherine, I whispered into the dark. Tomorrow, I'm going to do the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than any surgery. I'm going to look at our daughter and take her freedom away. Silence. The house breathing around me. Radiator pipes ticking. Wind against the old windows. I thought I heard her voice. Soft. Steady. The way she spoke. When something was serious. And she needed me to listen. Protect Ethan. Protect what we built. The rest will follow. I nodded in the dark. To no one. To her. To myself. At some point I must have slept because the next thing I knew, gray light was coming through the curtains. Monday morning. December 16th. 6 o'clock. I stood at the bathroom mirror. The face looking back was tired. 70 years old. Lines deeper than they were a week ago. Eyes that had seen too much in 72 hours. But the eyes were clear, and the jaw was set. I put on the charcoal suit. The one Catherine picked out for my retirement dinner 2 years ago. White shirt. Dark blue tie. The Mont Blanc pen in my breast pocket. I looked at myself and saw what I wanted Olivia to see when she walked through that door. Not a confused old man in a wrinkled shirt. Not a patient waiting to be evaluated. Not a victim. Thomas Brennan. 70 years old. Cardiac surgeon. 3,000 hearts. A man who had spent a lifetime making precise cuts to save lives. And today, would make one more. I straightened my tie. Walked downstairs. The evidence was still arranged on the dining table. The brownstone was quiet. Morning light coming through the east-facing windows. Beacon Hill waking up outside. At 7:15, a text from Ethan. On my way. Told Mom I'm going to school early. Be there by 7:45. At 7:40, Paul's Jeep pulled around back. He came in through the kitchen door. Dark jacket. Alert eyes. Rivera's in position, he said. Down the street. Black sedan. 2 agents, plus her. They're ready. I nodded. So am I. At 7:45, Ethan came through the front door. School uniform. Backpack. He looked at me in the suit, and his eyes widened slightly. He knew. This was it. Where do you want me? He asked. Living room. Sit on the couch. When they arrive. Don't say anything until I tell you. He nodded. Set his backpack down. Saturday. Hands folded in his lap. Steady. I checked the clock. 8:52. 8 minutes. Until 9. 8 minutes until my daughter rang the doorbell for the last time as a free woman. The operating room was ready. The team was in position. The instruments were laid out. All that remained was the patient. And she was right on schedule. 9 o'clock. The doorbell rang. For 42 years, that sound in a hospital meant a patient was being wheeled into my operating room. Unconscious. Vulnerable. Trusting me with their life. Today, the patients were walking in on their own 2 feet. They just did not know they were already on the table. I stood from Catherine's chair. Walked to the door. Steady. Unhurried. The way I walked into every surgery. No rushing. No hesitation. Just purpose. I opened the door. Olivia stood on the stoop in a black blazer and tailored pants. Hair pulled back tight. Lipstick fresh. She looked like a woman, closing a business deal. Behind her, Ryan in a charcoal suit and navy tie, leather briefcase in his right hand. He looked confident. Relaxed. A man who believed he had already won. Morning, Dad. Olivia smiled. Bright. Warm. The mask she had perfected over 9 months of planning. You ready? We've got the appointment at 9:30. I know it's early, but we want to make sure everything's finalized today. Ryan nodded behind her. Morning, Dad. The word from his mouth tasted like acid in my ears. Come in, I said. We need to talk. Olivia's smile held. Of course. But let's talk on the way. We don't want to be, no. My voice was different now. Not loud, not angry, just clear. The voice I used in the operating room when a situation demanded absolute attention. We're talking here. Now. Come inside. Something flickered across her face. The first microfracture in the mask. But she stepped through the door. Ryan followed. I closed it behind them. The lock clicked. I led them to the living room. They walked in, and Olivia stopped. Mid-step. Ethan was sitting on the couch. School uniform. Hands folded in his lap. Face blank. Ethan. Olivia's voice sharpened. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at school. Ethan did not answer. Did not move. Just looked at her with eyes that held something she had never seen from her son before. Distance. Olivia turned to me, the mask slipping further. Dad, what's going on? I did not sit. I wanted the height. The control. The same advantage a surgeon has standing over the table. Friday night. I said. I called to wish you a happy birthday. Do you remember? Yes. I remember. Do you remember that I mentioned signing the estate papers? A flush crept up her neck. Yes. I never hung up the phone, Olivia. Silence. The kind that fills a room the way water fills a sinking ship. Fast and cold. I heard everything. I continued. The entire conversation between you and Ryan. Every word. Ryan took a half step backward. What are you talking about? We didn't. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. The transcript Paul had printed. I unfolded it slowly, deliberately, set it on the coffee table. The old fool signed everything. I read aloud. Sell the brownstone. 4.1 million. Get him. Declared incompetent. By Monday afternoon, he's in a facility and we're free. I looked up at Olivia. Your words. Time-stamped. Recorded. Olivia's face went white. Not pink. Not pale. White. The color of a patient going into shock. I reached into the side table drawer. Pulled out 6 cards. Appointment reminder cards. I laid them on the coffee table one at a time. March, May, July, September, October, November. 6 cards in a neat row. 6 medical appointments, I said. All scheduled under my name. All at clinics I have never visited. All documented by a Dr. Victoria Sands, who was paid $8,000 to write whatever you told her to write. I straightened the last card. I have never been to any of these places, Olivia. You created a 7-month medical history that does not exist. Her hands were shaking now. Visibly. Ryan's face had gone from confident to gray. I picked up Paul's tablet from the side table, tapped the screen, turned it toward them. The video played. Clear as surgical lighting. Yesterday afternoon. The front stoop. Olivia extending an envelope. Dr. Sands opening it. Counting bills. Her voice through the speaker. 4,000. Yes. Certificate by 6 this evening. Immediate supervised care. Ryan shot to his feet. Turn that off. You can't. That's illegal. You recorded us without. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for recordings on private property. I said calmly. I was present. I consented. Every second is admissible. Ryan's mouth opened. Closed. He looked at Olivia. She was not looking back. She was staring at the tablet screen where the video had frozen on the frame of her hand passing the envelope. I set the tablet down. picked up one final document. The trust papers. 3 pages. Filed and recorded. "One more thing," I said. "This brownstone." I gestured at the walls around us. "As of Sunday morning at 8 a.m., this property no longer belongs to me. It belongs to an irrevocable living trust. The beneficiary is Ethan." I let that land. "This house is not mine to sell. Which means it is certainly not yours to take. You cannot touch it. No judge, no guardianship petition, no amount of forged paperwork will give you access to this property." Olivia's entire body sagged, like someone had cut the cables holding her upright. She looked at me with eyes that were no longer calculating. They were terrified. "Dad," she whispered. "What did you do?" "I protected what I built." From the couch, Ethan spoke. His voice quiet but clear, cutting through the room like a blade. "You asked me to write things down about Grandpa. You asked me to lie about him forgetting things." He looked at his mother. "He never forgot anything. Not once. You wanted me to help you destroy him, and I won't. I won't ever." Olivia whipped toward him. "Ethan, you don't understand." "I understand everything." Ryan grabbed Olivia's arm, his face red now, jaw clenched. "We're leaving. Right now. He can't prove." He pulled her toward the hallway, toward the front door. I did not raise my voice. Did not move. I simply said 5 words. "Agent Rivera, please come in." The front door opened. In the operating room, there is a sound every surgeon dreads. The long, flat tone of a heart monitor when the rhythm stops. Flatline. It means something has ended. Something that was alive a moment ago is now gone. Monday morning at 9:47. I heard that sound in my living room. Not from a machine. From my daughter's face when she realized it was over. Agent Sofia Rivera stepped through the front door. Mid-40s. Dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She wore a dark jacket over a plain shirt. FBI badge clipped to her belt. Behind her, 2 field agents in similar attire. They moved with quiet efficiency. No drama. No weapons drawn. Just calm professional certainty. Rivera's eyes swept the room in 2 seconds. Olivia frozen near the hallway. Ryan's hand still on her arm. Ethan on the couch. Me, standing by Catherine's chair. She had been briefed. She knew exactly who was who. "Jessica Hayes Morrison," she said. Then corrected herself with a glance at her notes. "Olivia Catherine Morrison. Ryan James Morrison." Her voice was level, neither cold nor warm. The voice of someone executing a task they had performed many times before. "I'm Agent Sofia Rivera, FBI Elder Abuse Task Force. You are both under arrest." Ryan found his voice first. "This is insane. This is entrapment. That old man set us, Mr. Morrison." Rivera's voice did not rise. It did not need to. "The charges are as follows. Elder, financial abuse, forgery of legal documents, medical identity theft, bribery of a medical professional, fabrication of medical records, criminal conspiracy." She paused. "Let each charge land like a stone dropped into still water. Additionally, Mr. Morrison, you are being detained in connection with an ongoing SEC investigation into securities fraud and mismanagement of elderly clients' portfolios." Ryan's face went from red to gray. The SEC. He had not seen that coming. Nobody had told him we knew about that. "You have the right to remain silent," Rivera continued. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided." One of the field agents stepped forward. Young, 35 maybe, moved behind Ryan with practiced efficiency. "Turn around, sir. Hands behind your back." Ryan did not move for 3 seconds. Then something in him collapsed. The fight went out of his shoulders. He turned. The handcuffs clicked. Metal on skin. A sound I had heard only in movies, until today. "This won't stick," Ryan muttered. But his voice was hollow. A man talking to convince himself, not anyone else. Rivera turned to Olivia. My daughter had not moved since the door opened. She stood in the hallway like a statue. Her blazer still perfect, her hair still pulled back tight. But her face was demolished. Mascara running, lips trembling, eyes wide and wet and empty. "Miss Morrison," Rivera said gently. "Turn around, please." Olivia did not turn. She looked at me. "Dad." Her voice was barely a sound. A whisper scraped raw. "Please, don't do this." I said nothing. I stood by Catherine's chair with my hands at my sides, and I said nothing. "Turn around, please," Rivera repeated. Patient but firm. Olivia turned slowly. Her hands went behind her back. The second agent stepped forward. The handcuffs closed around her wrists with a click that echoed through the brownstone like a door slamming shut on 39 years of fatherhood. Then Olivia turned her head. Not toward me. Toward Ethan. "Baby." Her voice breaking apart. "I'm so sorry. I did this for us. For our family. I was trying to protect." Ethan stood up from the couch. He took one step back. Away from her. "No." His voice was quiet. Steady. The steadiest thing in the room. "You did this for money. You didn't care about Grandpa. You didn't care about me. You only cared about the debt." Olivia's face crumpled completely. "Ethan, please. Please don't say that. I love you. I'm staying with Grandpa." Ethan's jaw was set. The same stubborn line I saw in the mirror every morning. Catherine's jawline passed down through Olivia to this boy. "You made your choice, Mom," Olivia sobbed. One hard, choking sound that filled the silent room. Rivera nodded to her agents. They began guiding Olivia and Ryan toward the front door. Ryan went first. Silent now. Head down, the fight gone. Just a man in an expensive suit with his hands cuffed behind his back, walking out of a house he had planned to sell. At the door, Olivia stopped. The agent paused, allowing it. She turned back one final time and found me across the room. "Dad," she said. Her voice shattered. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at her. My daughter. Catherine's daughter. The girl who used to sit on my lap and ask me to explain how the heart worked. The teenager who won the science fair with a model of a coronary bypass. The woman who held her mother's hand through 6 months of chemotherapy. The same woman who sold that mother's ring for $4,800 and built a 7-month scheme to bury me alive. I opened my mouth, closed it, then said the only true thing I had. "I don't know, Olivia. I honestly don't know." Rivera gently guided her forward. The door opened. December morning light flooded the hallway. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of snow. I followed them onto the stoop. 2 black sedans sat at the curb. Beacon Hill was quiet. Early Monday morning, but a few neighbors had appeared. Mrs. Patterson from across the street, standing on her stoop with a mug of coffee. The young couple from 2 doors down, pausing on their way to work. They watched in silence as Ryan was placed in the first vehicle. As Olivia was guided into the second, 2 doors closed. 2 engines started. I stood on the stoop of the brownstone Catherine, and I had bought 38 years ago, and watched the black sedans pull away down the cobblestone street. Olivia's face was visible through the rear window for a moment. Then the car turned the corner, and she was gone. I stood there until I could not hear the engines anymore. Until Beacon Hill was just Beacon Hill again. Quiet. Historic. Undisturbed. Paul appeared beside me. "It's done, Tom." I nodded but did not speak. Did not trust my voice. Inside I heard a sound. Soft. Muffled. Ethan. Sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. His shoulders shaking. 17 years old. Both parents just taken away in federal vehicles. His mother in handcuffs asking for forgiveness he was not ready to give. I walked back inside. Sat down next to him. Put my arm around his shoulders. He leaned into me. And I held him the way I held him when he was small, and the world had frightened him. Except now the thing that frightened him was the world itself. "It's over," I whispered. "No, Grandpa," Ethan said, his voice cracking. "This is just the beginning." He was right. The surgery was complete. The tumor removed. But recovery would take years. Maybe longer. Maybe forever. After every surgery, there is the recovery room. The patient is alive. The operation was successful. The tumor is gone. But the body does not know that yet. It only knows something was cut open. Something was removed. And now there is a wound where something used to be. That is where Ethan and I lived for the next week. Alive but wounded. Saved, but not yet healed. Monday afternoon. The brownstone had never been so quiet. Not even after Catherine's funeral. That silence had been filled with visitors, flowers, casseroles from neighbors. This silence was empty. Just two people sitting in a house that felt larger than it had the day before. Ethan had not moved from the couch. 3 hours since his mother was led away in handcuffs, and he sat in the same position. Head down, hands between his knees. Not crying anymore. Just still. The kind of stillness that worried me more than tears. I went to the kitchen. Opened the refrigerator. Closed it. Opened it again. Pulled out bread, butter, American cheese. Grilled cheese. Ethan's favorite since he was 6 years old. The one thing I could make without burning. I heated the pan. Buttered the bread. Listened to the sizzle. Normal sounds. Kitchen sounds. The sounds of a house where someone is taking care of someone else. I brought the plate to the living room. Set it on the coffee table with a glass of water. "You need to eat," I said. "I'm not hungry." "I know. Eat anyway." He picked up the sandwich. Took a small bite. Then another. Mechanical. No pleasure in it. Just fuel. I sat down next to him. The clock ticked. Outside. A car passed. Life continuing on Beacon Hill, as if nothing had happened. After 5 minutes, Ethan spoke. "Grandpa." His voice was small, younger than 17. "Who am I going to live with now?" I looked at him. "With me." "Who else?" He blinked. "Really?" "Ethan. This house belongs to you now. Legally. Remember? You're the beneficiary. If anything, I'm living with you." I tried to make it light, a joke, something to crack the weight pressing down on us. He did not laugh. But something in his shoulders relaxed. Just slightly. Just enough. "What about school?" he asked. "Same school. Same routine. Nothing changes except where you sleep. The guest room? Your room now. We'll clear it out this weekend. You can set it up however you want." He nodded. Took another bite of the sandwich. Set it down. Picked up the water. Drank half the glass. At 3:30, my phone rang. "Agent Rivera." "Dr. Brennan," she said. "I wanted to update you. We arrested Dr. Victoria Sands at her office in Revere this afternoon. She confessed within 20 minutes, accepted cash payments from multiple families to fabricate competency evaluations. Multiple families? 8 other victims that we've identified so far. All elderly. All targeted for guardianship fraud. Your case broke it open, Dr. Brennan. Sands has been running this scheme for at least 4 years. A pause. She's looking at 7 to 10 years. Loss of medical license. And we're working to identify restitution for all 9 victims, including you. 9 victims. 8 other families who went through what I almost went through. 8 other people whose children or caretakers decided they were worth more as assets than as human beings. Thank you, Agent Rivera. Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Your evidence was airtight. I've been doing this 15 years, and I've rarely seen a case built this well. After she hung up, I sat at the kitchen table. 8 other victims. I thought about them, wondered how many were still in facilities they did not need to be in. How many had lost their homes? How many had no one to fight for them the way Paul and Ethan fought for me? The days blurred after that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each one a little easier than the last. The way the first week after surgery is always the hardest. The body adjusting to its new reality. The absence of what was removed. Ethan moved into the guest room Wednesday evening. We drove to his parents' house in Brookline while they were in custody and packed 2 suitcases of his clothes, his books, his laptop, a framed photo of Catherine from the hallway. He did not take anything of Olivia's or Ryan's. Did not look at their bedroom. Just grabbed what was his and walked out. Routines formed. I made coffee at 6. Ethan came downstairs at 6:45 for school. I made breakfast, badly. Eggs too dry. Toast too dark. He ate it anyway. He came home at 3:30. Did homework at the kitchen table. I sat in my study pretending to read, while really just listening to the sound of another person in the house. Thursday evening. We were eating takeout Thai food at the kitchen table when Ethan set down his fork and asked the question I had been waiting for. Grandpa, was Mom always like this? I set my own fork down. Thought carefully. He deserved honesty. Not comfort. Not platitudes. Truth. No, I said. Or at least, I don't think so. When your mother was young, she was kind, curious, generous. She helped your grandmother in the garden every summer. She cried when a bird flew into our window and broke its neck. I paused. But people change, Ethan. Or maybe we just finally see what was always there. I don't know which it is with your mother. I may never know. Do you think it was Ryan? I think Ryan made it easier. He gave her permission to do something she might never have done alone. But she made the choice, Ethan. Every step of the way. She chose this. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I think about that. About choices. About whether I could ever become like her. You couldn't. How do you know? I looked at him across the table. This boy who had chosen truth over family, who had worn a hidden phone for 3 days and never wavered, who stood in front of his own mother and said no. Because when you were given the choice, I said, you chose what was right. Even when it cost you everything. That's not something you learn, Ethan. That's something you are. He nodded slowly. Picked up his fork. Went back to eating. Friday morning. 1 week since the FaceTime call. 1 week since my life cracked open. I was drinking coffee at the kitchen window when my phone buzzed. An email notification from Davidson and Pierce Law Office. Subject. Re. Olivia Morrison. Communication. Request. I opened it. Dr. Brennan. We represent Olivia Morrison in her pending criminal matter. Our client has requested visitation with you at the Suffolk County House of Correction. She wishes to speak with you personally. Please advise whether you are willing to arrange a meeting. I stared at the screen. My coffee went cold in my hand. Olivia wanted to see me. 1 week after I watched her taken away in handcuffs, she wanted to sit across from me and talk. I closed the email. Set the phone face down on the counter. Not yet. I was not ready for that. Not yet. 3 weeks after the arrest. Suffolk County Courthouse. Thursday morning. 10 o'clock. The building smelled like old wood and floor wax. The kind of smell that belongs to places where lives are decided. I walked in with Paul on my left and Ethan on my right. Ethan wore a navy suit I had bought him the previous weekend. First suit he had ever owned. He looked older in it. More serious. Like someone who had aged 5 years in 3 weeks. We sat in the third row. Hard wooden benches. The courtroom was half full. A court reporter, near the judge's bench. 2 attorneys. At the defense table, shuffling papers. A few observers I did not recognize. Then a side door opened. Olivia and Ryan were led in by two federal marshals. Orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed in front. Olivia's hair was loose, uncombed, no makeup. She looked 10 years older than she had 3 weeks ago. Ryan's face was blank, hollowed out. The arrogance completely gone. They sat at the defense table. Olivia's eyes found me across the room, held for 2 seconds. Then she looked down at her hands. Judge Margaret Harrison entered. Late 50s, short gray hair, glasses perched on her nose. The kind of face that said she had heard every excuse ever invented and believed none of them. Everyone stood. She sat. We sat. The court will now hear the preliminary charges in the matter of the United States versus Olivia Catherine Morrison and Ryan James Morrison, she said. Flat. Formal. She read from a document. The charges filled the room like cold water rising. Olivia Catherine Morrison. 4 counts of medical identity theft. 3 counts of forgery. 2 counts of elder financial abuse. 1 count of bribery of a medical professional. 1 count of criminal conspiracy. Maximum combined sentence, 15 years. Ryan James Morrison. 2 counts of elder financial abuse. 1 count of criminal conspiracy. 3 counts of securities fraud. 2 counts of mismanagement of elderly clients' assets. Maximum combined sentence, 18 years. Olivia stared at the table. Ryan's jaw clenched so tight, I could see the muscle twitching from the 3rd row. The judge looked up. Dr. Brennan, the court invites your victim impact statement. I stood. Paul squeezed my shoulder once. I walked to the front. There was a microphone on a wooden podium. I adjusted it and looked directly at Olivia. My name is Thomas Brennan, I said. I am 70 years old. I spent 42 years as a cardiac surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. I have held over 3,000 hearts in my hands. I paused, but I could not protect my own. Olivia's shoulders began shaking. My daughter spent 7 months fabricating my medical history. She forged my legal documents. She bribed a physician. She planned to have me declared incompetent and placed in a facility I did not need, so she could sell the home I shared with my wife for 38 years. I kept my voice even. Surgeon's voice. No tremor. No anger. Just facts. She did not try to steal property, I continued. She tried to erase me. 42 years of who I am. My dignity. My independence. My right to live in my own home. She tried to reduce me to a signature on a page and a body in a bed. I looked at the judge now. I am asking this court to hold both defendants accountable under the full extent of the law. Not for revenge, but because if I had not fought back, 8 other victims of Dr. Sands would still be trapped in facilities they do not belong in. Justice is not personal. It is structural. I stepped back. The courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Ethan. Ethan Morrison. The court understands you wish to make a statement. Ethan stood. I saw his hands trembling at his sides, but he walked to the podium with steady steps, stood before the microphone. 17 years old, in a new Navy suit. My name is Ethan Morrison. His voice was quiet, but clear. My parents asked me to document my grandfather's mental decline. They told me to write down every time he seemed confused, but he was never confused. They wanted me to create evidence that didn't exist. He paused, swallowed. I love my grandfather. He taught me everything I know about science, about integrity, about being a man, and my parents tried to use me as a weapon against him. I won't be that weapon. Not now. Not ever. I watched Olivia cover her mouth, sobs shaking her frame. The public defender beside her shifted uncomfortably. 6 weeks later, the phone call came from Martin Chen on a Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Brennan. Plea deals accepted. Olivia, 10 years. Ryan, 13. Dr. Sands, 7 years plus permanent revocation of medical license. I thanked him, hung up, sat in the kitchen. It was done. No trial. No months of testimony. Just numbers. 10, 13, 7. The arithmetic of consequences. That same week, Martin called again. One more thing. We located your wife's ring. The pawn shop in Somerville still had it. Hadn't been resold. I redeemed it for $5,200. Shall I send it to you? Yes, I said. My voice caught. Please. The package arrived 2 days later. Small box. Padded envelope. I opened it at the kitchen table. The ring sat on white cotton. 2.1 carats. Platinum band. Cleaned and polished. It looked exactly the way it did the day I slid it onto Catherine's finger on the Harvard Bridge 42 years ago. I carried it upstairs. Opened the walnut jewelry box. Placed the ring back in its velvet slot. Where it belonged. Where it should have stayed. You're home, Catherine. I whispered. I'm sorry I let her take you. It won't happen again. I closed the lid. Ran my thumb over the brass hinges. Stood there in the quiet bedroom with the faint trace of lavender still holding on to the curtains. At 9 that night, my phone buzzed. Email notification. From Olivia Morrison. Suffolk County House of Correction. Subject. I'm sorry, Dad. The preview text read, I'm writing you because I need you to know something. I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need to say it anyway. I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered over the open button, the cursor blinking, waiting. I closed the phone, set it face down on the nightstand. Not yet, but maybe soon. Maybe when the wound had closed enough that her words could not tear it open again. A surgeon's legacy is not measured in the number of operations performed. It is measured in the lives that continue after the scalpel is put down. 6 months after my daughter went to prison, I picked up a different kind of instrument. I stood at a podium in a downtown Boston conference room. 60 faces looked back at me. Survivors, social workers, 2 city council members, a reporter from the Globe. In the front row, Paul with his arms crossed. Martin Chen with his legal pad, Agent Rivera near the back door, and Ethan, 18 now, charcoal suit, eyes steady, behind me a banner, Catherine Brennan Hart and Justice Foundation. A year ago, the people I trusted most planned to take my home and freedom, I said. I was lucky. I had the skills to fight back. But thousands of older Americans face the same betrayal every year, and most fight alone. This foundation exists so no one has to. Free legal representation, investigative support, counseling, $250,000 in seed funding. Every dollar aimed at protecting the people nobody thinks need protecting. After the speech, Ethan found me by the coffee table. Good speech, Grandpa. A deeper smile now. More measured. The smile of someone who had seen the worst and decided to build from it. I got my acceptance letter yesterday, he said. Harvard. Biological Sciences Pre-Med. Full scholarship. I stared at him, then pulled him into a hug. Right there. In front of 60 people. And Grandpa, he said against my shoulder, I want to study law too. Dual degree. Medicine and justice. So this never happens to anyone else. Catherine would have wept. That night, alone in the brownstone, I finally opened Olivia's email. 6 months it had sat there, unopened. I tapped the screen. 3 pages, handwritten. Scanned through the prison system. Small, careful letters. Dear Dad, I know sorry is not enough. I did not start out wanting to hurt you. She wrote about the debt, Ryan's failures, the foreclosure threats, how the plan started small and grew darker with each step. until she could not see what she had become. The ring. Selling Mom's ring was the worst thing I have ever done. I needed cash within 24 hours. Every night since, I see her face. My throat tightened. I'm not asking you to forgive me now. Maybe someday, 5 years from now, you'll look at me and see something other than what I became. Maybe you'll remember the girl who asked you how hearts work. I set the phone down. Part of me was furious. She was still explaining, still building narrative, but underneath the words I heard something that sounded less like excuse and more like a woman who had stopped running from what she did. I did not reply, but I printed the letter, folded it, and placed it in Catherine's desk drawer. Someday, not today. 10 months after the arrest. Saturday morning. Ethan came downstairs dressed carefully. Grandpa, I want to visit Mom. Are you sure? No. But I need to. I drove him to Suffolk County House of Correction. Waited in the parking lot for 40 minutes. When he came back, his eyes were red. He did not speak until halfway across the Longfellow Bridge. She asked if I forgive her. I kept my eyes on the road. What did you say? I said I'm trying. But I need more time. I squeezed his shoulder. That's honest. Honesty is enough. 4 months later. 14 months after the arrest. February. A Tuesday afternoon. I drove myself to the facility. Signed in. Plastic chairs. Plexiglass partition. A phone on each side. Olivia sat on the other side. Hair tied back. Face pale. Thinner. Hands clasped on the counter. She looked up when I sat down. Eyes filling immediately. I picked up the phone. Dad. Her voice thin through the receiver. Thank you for coming. Silence. Then I asked, Are you okay? She shook her head. No. But I'm alive. I think about you and Ethan every day. I know I can't undo it. I just want you to know. I see it now. I read your letter, I said. Her eyes widened. You did? 6 months after you sent it. I wasn't ready before. A pause. Are you ready now? I thought about Catherine's words. The ones I had carried since the night before the arrest. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It is so you can let go of the rock. I'm trying to forgive you, Olivia, I said. It's a process. Some days I've made progress. Other days I'm still angry. But I refuse to carry it forever. Your mother wouldn't have wanted that. Olivia wiped her eyes. Is Ethan okay? Harvard. Medicine and law. He's extraordinary. Her face crumpled. Pride and grief together. Tell him I'm proud. I will. We talked 10 more minutes. Small things. Careful. The weather. A book she was reading. Nothing heavy. Just two people finding the edges of something new between them. The guard signaled. I stood. Placed my palm flat against the plexiglass. Olivia hesitated. Then pressed hers against the other side. Our hands an inch apart. Separated by plastic and 10 years. I walked to the car. February. Air sharp and clean. Boston gray above. I sat behind the wheel for a long time. I felt lighter. Not healed, but lighter. A stone set down. Not thrown away. Just set down for a moment. And for now, that was enough. In surgery, the last step is always the same. You close the wound. Stitch by stitch, you bring the edges together. You cannot make the scar disappear. But you can make sure it heals clean, that it holds, that the body can move forward without tearing itself open again. 18 months after my daughter went to prison. A Saturday afternoon in June. Ethan and I sat on the front stoop of the brownstone, coffee cups in hand, watching Beacon Hill settle into evening. He was home from Harvard for the weekend. Freshman year nearly complete. Taller now. Broader in the shoulders, still wearing those wire-rimmed glasses. Still had that quiet intensity when he was thinking about something important. "Grandpa," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you ever regret it?" Turning Mom in, I looked out at the street. The cobblestones catching the low June light. A woman walking a dog on the opposite sidewalk. The same street I had watched from this stoop for 38 years. The same view Catherine loved on summer evenings. "I regret that it came to that," I said. "I regret the lies. I regret the months of planning. I regret that my daughter looked at me and saw dollar signs instead of her father." I took a sip of coffee. "But no. I don't regret protecting you. I don't regret protecting this house. And I don't regret the truth." Ethan nodded slowly. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't overheard that call. I would be in Shady Brook. This house would be sold. You would be living with grandparents on Ryan's side who didn't know the truth." I set my cup down on the step, and 8 other victims of Dr. Sands would still be trapped. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm glad you heard it. Suangwi, if you are still here, comment and tell me. Would you have done the same thing? Would you have fought back? Or would you have let it go? I want to hear your answer. I have told you this story, not because I want you to admire the revenge of an old man pushing 70. I told you because I want you to learn what cost me dearly to understand. Never trust blindly, even when it is your own child." I signed papers without reading them. I trusted Olivia because she smiled and called me Dad. I thought family love could replace vigilance. I was wrong. Do not be like me. Read every legal document before you sign. Ask an independent lawyer to review anything that gives another person control over your assets or your medical decisions. Protect yourself. Even when the person across from you shares your blood. The lesson from my story is simple. Love does not mean abandoning boundaries. Forgiveness does not mean letting others destroy you. And sometimes standing up for yourself is not vengeance. It is survival. I want to share something personal. After everything that happened, after the betrayal and the courtroom and the prison visits, I found strength in places I did not expect. God did not save me from the storm, but He placed people in my path who carried me through it. Paul, who answered his phone at 11 on a Friday night without hesitation. Martin, who drafted legal documents at 1 in the morning. Sophia Rivera, who believed me and moved fast. And Ethan, my grandson, who chose truth over comfort, who chose integrity over family loyalty when family loyalty meant participating in fraud. I believe God works through people. Through the hands that steady you when you cannot stand. Through the voice on the phone that says, "I'll be there in 25 minutes. Through a 17-year-old boy who says, "I'll do it," when you ask him to do the hardest thing he has ever done. That is where I found God in all of this. Not in the punishment, not in the courtroom, in the people who stood beside me when everything fell apart. If you are in a similar situation, if someone is exploiting you because of your age, because of your trust, because they believe you are too old to fight back, hear me. Act now. Do not wait. Record everything. Save every document. Find a lawyer who specializes in elder law. Call the authorities. You are not helpless. You are not too old. And you are not alone. So, Catherine used to say something that I have carried with me every day since she passed. Forgiveness is letting go of the rock you are carrying. But before you let go, make sure you have finished building the wall that protects you. Protection comes before peace. Build your wall first. Then, when you are safe, when you are standing on solid ground, you can decide what to do with the rock. Set it down, throw it away, or keep it as a reminder. The choice is yours. But build the wall first. The foundation we created continues. 27 cases in 18 months. 27 older Americans who kept their homes, their freedom, their dignity because someone was there to fight alongside them. The number is small, but for each one of those people, it was everything. Olivia has 8 more years. Someday, she will walk out of that facility. And maybe by then, Ethan and I will be ready to sit at a table with her. No plexiglass. No guards. Just a family trying to find whatever remains after trust has been broken and rebuilt in a different shape. I do not know what that will look like. But I know this. The brownstone still stands. Beacon Hill still catches the evening light, the way it did when Catherine and I first moved in. Ethan is becoming the man his grandmother prayed he would be. And I am still here, 71 years old. Still sharp, still standing. Ethan leaned his head against my shoulder, the way he used to when he was small. The sun was setting over Beacon Hill, orange and gold pouring down the narrow street, lighting up the old brick and iron railings. "I love you, Grandpa," he said. "I love you too, kid." The brownstone stood solid behind us, the way it had for 38 years, the way it would for 38 more, built on a foundation that had survived the worst thing a family can endure and held. Some foundations, once built right, can survive anything. Even the people who try to tear them down. And if this story reached your heart, if it made you think about someone you love, share it with them. Sometimes the most powerful protection we can offer is simply saying, "I heard this story, and I thought of you." Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the stories that matter. Leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done. And remember, you are never too old to fight for what is yours. Thank you for being here. Until next time.